Nothing is more important than making sure South Dakota's children receive excellent care. Family daycares provide one of the cornerstones that ensures working parents receive the childcare support they need to keep their families and South Dakota thriving. If you operate a family daycare that serves fewer than 12 children, you may wish to register your program. Even though this is voluntary, registration helps you maintain basic quality care standards and gives the families you serve peace of mind when they leave their children in your care. Registration also helps make your program eligible for federal dollars allocated for the purposes of childcare. While the process for registration is less complex than licensing a childcare center, there's still a number of aspects you'll need to keep in mind as you move forward. This training video is designed to help you understand these requirements and ensure your program is in compliance. Let's get started. First, let's cover the basic qualifications for a family daycare provider. While there are no formal educational requirements, in contrast to licensed daycare centers, there are other types of requirements, health, background, and training, for family daycare providers and their helpers. A family daycare provider must be at least 18 years of age and be able to provide care that meets the child or children's physical, social, cognitive, and emotional needs. Additionally, your family and possibly household relationships cannot have the potential to negatively impact children in your care. Before you receive a certificate of registration, you must provide documentation of the following. Neither you or any of the members of your household have a substantiated report of child abuse or neglect. The provider, any household member 18 years of age or older, or helper providing care does not have a conviction for a crime of violence, a sex crime, a crime indicating harm to children, felony spousal abuse or battery, or any felony conviction within the past 5 years. You don't owe child support totaling $1,000 or more. You are certified in infant child CPR, including a hands-on skills test. You must complete orientation training within 90 days of certification. You and all household members complete a background check. This includes out-of-state background checks if you, your household members, or your helpers have lived outside of South Dakota in the past 5 years. Finally, before you can be granted registration, there are health requirements you and the members of your household must meet, such as current immunization records for each of the provider's children under the age of 18 who live in the home. Medical and religious exemptions may apply here. Your licensing specialist may request documentation of other health information, particularly if there's a change in your health status. Running a family daycare is a big job, and it's not unusual to hire a helper. In fact, if you plan to care for more than 4 children under 2 years of age, or more than 2 children under a year old, you must have a helper present. If you're using a helper, including any time when another individual provides care for children in your absence, you need to verify that they meet the necessary requirements. Here are the requirements for family daycare helpers. They must be at least 14 years of age and at least 18 years of age before you can leave them alone with children in your care. You need to maintain a record on each helper and make it available to the Department of Social Services upon request. You can find full information about these requirements in your online handbook. You and all of your helpers must also provide proof that you've undergone background screening. We cover that process and its requirements in a brief video, which is available on our website. You can also find full details for this in your handbook. In addition to the background screening, you and your helpers are required to complete orientation training. Providers need to finish orientation within 90 days of receiving a certificate of registration, while helpers need to wrap it up within 90 days of hire. Training includes infectious disease prevention and control, safe sleep practices, medication administration, prevention of and response to allergic reactions, building and physical safety, prevention of shaken baby syndrome and abusive head trauma, emergency preparedness and response planning, handling and storing hazardous materials and disposing of biocontaminants, safe transportation, child development, recognizing abuse and neglect, first aid, and infant-child CPR. With the exception of infant-child CPR, this training is available online, on demand, at no cost through the Early Childhood Enrichment Office in your area and will take about 6 hours to complete. Because we know everyone comes to childcare with different skills and backgrounds, we require registered providers and helpers to participate in a minimum of 6 hours of training each year. You can find a full rundown of topic areas to choose from in your handbook. Remaining current on health and safety practices is a vital component in ensuring you provide the best care for your children. That's why, in addition, you and your helpers must complete ongoing health and safety training every 5 years. These topics will mirror much of what you cover in your orientation training. Please refer to your handbook for more details regarding how to locate and report the training you and your helpers complete. Accurate record keeping helps to ensure you provide the safest environment possible for the children in your care. Registered providers must maintain records containing specific information about the children enrolled in their program and ensure the information is quickly accessible in an emergency. You must have the following information for each of the children in your care prior to their attendance in your family daycare: the child's name, date of birth, and the name and telephone number of the child's parent or guardian, the date the child was enrolled in the daycare, names and telephone numbers for persons to contact in the event of an emergency. Even though parents will be the first to be contacted in an emergency, this contact should be someone other than the parent in case they can't be reached. A signed authorization from the child's parent or guardian for the provider to obtain emergency medical care for the child if necessary, and the child's current immunization record. If you'd like to have standard forms on file for collecting this information, your licensing specialist can provide you with a supply. You can also find them in the Family Child Care Handbook on the DSS website. We recommend keeping them on file for consistency and to ensure you are compliant with the required information. As a requirement of registration, you'll have access to personal information for the children in your care. Remember to keep this information confidential. Specifically, you may not share photos of the children in your care on social media without the parent's explicit permission. Sometimes, despite our best precautions and efforts, tragedies strike. We don't like to think about it, but as a child care provider, you're required to report these events to the Department of Social Services within 24 hours after the event. This could include a fire, serious injury, or death of a child, or any other unusual event. A serious injury is defined as an injury that requires medical treatment. You're also required to report any changes in the composition of your household. If a child in your care contracts a communicable disease, you are required to follow the Department of Health's recommendations for excluding children who are contagious, report contagious diseases to the DOH. Doctors are also mandatory reporters of a contagious disease. When you and the child's doctor both report to the DOH, this makes sure all parties are aware of the situation. Reporting to the DOH also gives a registered provider the opportunity to ask questions related to the disease. As a registered family daycare provider, you're also a mandatory reporter when it comes to abuse and neglect. State law requires you, if you have reasonable cause to suspect any child under the age of 18 years has been abused or neglected, to report that information to one of the following: the Department of Social Services, the state's attorney office, or local law enforcement. If you fail to report your suspicions of abuse, you could be in for fines or jail time, so it's important that you take action, not just for the child's welfare, but also for your own. A safe registered family daycare starts with safe surroundings. That's why your home must meet a number of requirements before you receive certification. Let's explore what this means. Your family daycare must have a working smoke detector on each level of the home. In addition, you need to ensure that any audible alarms can be heard above the normal noise level during occupancy. To ensure you're ready in the event of a fire, a fully charged portable fire extinguisher with a minimum 2A rating as identified on the extinguisher label must be kept near the food processing area. The water in your family daycare must come from a community water system or from a water system that is tested at least annually by a laboratory certified by the Department of Health to conduct such tests. The water must be tested for bacteria and nitrate levels and must be safe for consumption. The provider must maintain written documentation of the test results. Hot water from plumbing fixtures normally utilized by children in care may not exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Family daycares should provide adequate heating, ventilating, and lighting for the protection of children's health. In addition, a guard must be provided to protect children from and restrict their access to hot surfaces and open flames. You may use a fuel-fired room heater as long as it is properly vented. Electrical outlets often pose a danger for curious children. That's why you are required to cover all outlets in your home with plugs or self-closing outlet covers. There may be no bare or exposed electrical wires present within the home. You must take effective measures to minimize the presence of rodents and insects on the premises. Doors and windows used for outside ventilation must be screened and in good repair. For the safety and health of children in your care, you'll need to comply with basic food quality and storage benchmarks. Food must be free from spoilage, filth, and other contamination, and must be safe for human consumption. Fluid milk and fluid milk products used or served must be pasteurized and must meet grade A quality. During storage, preparation, and serving, food must be protected from potential contamination. Food which is removed from the original container or package in which it was obtained must be stored in a clean, covered, non-absorbent container. And refrigeration facilities must be provided to ensure the maintenance of potentially hazardous foods at 41 degrees Fahrenheit or below during storage. Frozen foods must be kept frozen and must be stored at a temperature of 0 degrees Fahrenheit or below. For the sake of children's physical safety, you'll be required to have or install railings in certain instances. All floor and wall openings, open-sided areas, platforms, and decks that are 30 inches or more above the ground level must be guarded by a railing or barrier. These railings must be sufficient to prevent a child from crawling or falling through or becoming entrapped. It's critical to the health and safety of the children in your care that you provide adequate sanitation of a number of surfaces, including diaper changing stations, food prep areas, and toys that children may put in their mouths. You can find complete details on proper sanitation practices in the Family Daycare Policy Handbook on the DSS website. The playground can and should be a place of fun and healthy socialization. In order to make sure that's the case, you should keep yours free of litter, trash, weeds, and other hazardous materials such as lawn care equipment, tools, abandoned household appliances, flammable materials, and abandoned automobiles. Also keep in mind that any playground equipment, swings, jungle gyms, and others must be installed according to the manufacturer's recommendations and in good shape. We've just discussed an area where children in your care should play. Let's turn our attention to areas they must not play unless specific conditions are met. Children in your care may not play in areas where there is a body of water. Pools, hot tubs, ponds, ditches, water tanks, or any other area where they may drown. If you have a swimming pool, you must empty it after each use or secure it on all sides with a fence or barrier that is at least 5 feet high. Exits from and entrances to the pool must have self-closing, latching gates that must be latched and locked at all times when daycare children are present. If the home has a hot tub, the tub must be covered with a safety cover approved by the American Society for Testing and Materials. Many of us keep pets at home and we consider them part of the family. Make sure you keep in mind these requirements if there's a furry friend who lives at your home daycare. The pet must be in good health, show no evidence of carrying any disease, and be a friendly companion to the children and parents. Wild or dangerous animals, such as ferrets, lizards, or other reptiles, must be kept in a covered glass container or tank that is inaccessible to children. Potentially aggressive animals, such as pit bulls or Rottweilers, must be confined and kept away from the children. Dogs or cats must be immunized for any disease that can be transmitted to humans. In addition, you must provide documentation that the pet has had the required immunizations and that the immunizations are current. Finally, you need to make sure your pet's living quarters are kept clean. This includes litter boxes, which must be covered and kept clean in order to eliminate odor. And to prevent the children in your care from sampling Fido's dinner, the pet food supply may not be accessible to the children. To ensure nap times are healthy and relaxing for everyone, here are a few things you need to keep in mind. Each child must be provided with or must bring a mat or blanket to be used during nap time or rest periods. The provider may not allow a child to nap or rest directly on bare or carpeted floors. If nighttime care is provided, the provider shall provide a cot or bed for each child in nighttime care. Cribs and mattresses must be maintained in good repair. Stackable cribs may not be used. Soft bedding materials such as blankets, stuffed animals, and bumper pads that could pose a suffocation hazard may not be used in cribs or playpens. Infants must be placed on their backs for sleeping. Discipline is a daily part of managing a daycare, and it can be difficult to know what to do, particularly when a spirited child is acting out. Here are some requirements that will help you keep discipline a safe and healthy part of your day. Ideally, discipline can be a positive experience that leads to growth. Offer clear-cut limits and express your expectations for behaviors. Remember to tailor your approach to the child's age and developmental level. If you separate a child from the group, they must be within your line of sight and within hearing range. You absolutely must not use any of the following as disciplinary measures at your daycare: spanking, hitting, pinching, biting, shaking, or inflicting any other physical punishment. Humiliating or frightening punishment. Verbal abuse or threats. Confinement. Punishment as a means of toilet training. Withholding of meals or sleep. Use of substances such as hot pepper sauce. And never ever shake an infant under any circumstances. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, take a moment to walk away. Collect yourself. Ask for assistance. More resources to assist you in this area are available through your local early childhood enrichment offices and at the DSS website. Supervision of children is a central purpose of all childcare programs. It's about more than providing safety. You're also responsible for helping the children in your care develop in healthy ways. That means monitoring for everything from physical altercations to more subtle forms of bullying. We all know that children can get into trouble quickly. They're danger magnets, risk takers, and learning about what's safe and what's not is a lifelong process. That's why family daycare providers must be able to see and hear the children they're caring for. With this in mind, please remember, the law allows a registered provider to care for a maximum of 12 children, including the provider's own children under 6 years of age. It doesn't matter how many adults are present, 12 is the limit. What's more, no more than 4 of the 12 children can be under 2 years of age, and no more than 2 of those 4 children may be under 1 year of age, unless you have a registered helper in the home. It isn't uncommon for children in your care to take medications, and it's vital to their health that you understand the requirements surrounding administration and storage of medications. Medications may only be administered with the written consent of the parent or guardian. The consent must list the name of the medication and the date or dates the medication is to be administered. Any medication administered to a child must be documented to include the dose, name of the child, time and date administered, and the signature of the person administering the medication. The documentation must be available to the child's parent or guardian and must be kept for 6 months. Medications must be kept in their original container with the original label, which must contain legible directions for use, the expiration date, the child's name, and the physician's name. You'll need to store the medications in a place that's inaccessible to children. Medication requiring refrigeration must be placed in another container which is not absorbent and labeled medication. Another common health issue you'll need to plan for is allergic reactions to food. It's not just required for registration, it could be the difference between life and death. Whenever family daycare providers care for children with allergies, they must develop a written care plan related to, for example, food, pets, environment, or bee stings. The plan should include known allergies, a plan for preventing exposure to the specific food, the pets, precaution for outside play, etc. Signs and symptoms of an allergic reaction, and steps to take by the provider or helpers if a child is showing signs of an allergic reaction. This plan should be accessible to helpers. Feeding time for an infant should be a warm, loving experience. Practicing proper bottle feeding techniques will help ensure growing infants get the nutrition they need. Make eye contact, comforting sounds, and talk to the baby. Not only will this help you bond with the child, it'll help you make sure they're getting enough to eat. You are never to practice bottle propping for infants in your care. Bottle propping is a feeding technique in which a bottle given to an infant is leaned against a pillow or other support, rather than providers or helpers holding the infant and the bottle. It may result in choking. Another way to keep yourself and children in your care safe and healthy is through proper hand washing. Hand washing is the most important way to reduce the spread of infection and disease. Family daycare regulations require that a provider must wash their hands after using the restroom, after changing a diaper, after working with soiled clothing or bedding, and before handling food. The provider also must ensure that a child's hands are washed before and after meals and after the child has used the bathroom. It isn't uncommon for parents to drop in at childcare facilities to visit their children during the day. You must allow them to visit your program at any time their child is in your care, whether announced or not. There are no exceptions. It may seem like common sense, but it bears repeating here. One of the most effective ways to ensure the children in your care remain safe and healthy is to be present and attentive. Family daycare regulations require it. Whenever a child is in care during the day, the provider or substitute provider must be present in the family daycare home and awake and alert to the needs of the child. If you're providing overnight care, the provider or substitute provider must be present in the family daycare home and accessible and responsive to a child who awakens during the night and requires attention. Whenever a substitute provider is to be used, the provider must notify the child's parent. If the child is 3 years of age or older, the provider may supervise outdoor activities from inside the home if the child playing outside is within the provider's line of sight. If you're providing care for a child under the age of 3, the provider or substitute provider must meet the following additional requirements. You must be on the same level of the home as the child or be able to hear the child and expeditiously respond to the child's needs. You must provide each child with a daily opportunity to freely move about in a safe, clean, and uncluttered area. And unlike with children over 3, you provide direct supervision when the child is outside. We don't like to think about emergencies happening, but planning for them is central to providing a safe environment for the children in your care. Make sure you have plans for weather disasters, power outages, armed intruders, fires, and other common events. Things to think about in developing an emergency preparedness plan include the following. Keep it simple. The directions should be short and to the point, so it is easily understood and remembered by any helper or parent reading the document. Keep it handy. Use it often for reference and not hidden away somewhere on a shelf. Plans are only effective if they are used. Practice, practice, practice. Practice gives people confidence to do what they're supposed to do during an emergency. Communicate your plan with helpers, parents, everyone involved in your program. Share your plan with neighbors and local emergency personnel. Your plan should be a part of the larger community and state emergency preparedness plans. You can find a full accounting of everything you'll need to include in your plans in the Family Daycare Handbook, available on the DSS website. Make sure you review this material closely and develop your plan. Again, preparation, communication, and practice are key to your plan's success. In addition to having an emergency preparedness plan, help ensure you and your children in your care are prepared to know what to do in the event of a fire or other emergency. 4 annual fire drills and 1 annual tornado drill must be completed and documented. This concludes our training. Thank you for your time and attention. We encourage you to refer back to this video and our comprehensive handbook whenever you have questions about requirements for licensing. You can also always contact your area's licensing specialist with questions or concerns.